Hello, everybody. My album, Night Creatures, is now available for pre-order. It was mastered by Bob Weston and pressed on 180-gram vinyl. Decca Records will release the album on September 18th, but here's your chance to get your grubby hands on it sooner than later. And all profits through the end of this month will be donated to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Go to joewong.bigcartel.com or click on the link in the description to this episode to order. This is Joe Wong. Welcome to the Trap Set. During the age of social distancing, we are recording remotely and releasing extra episodes.
Pagan high, tell me what to do. I will stand all night, I will walk to you. I will burn in fire, the shaking is new. But when I find you, my body will be clean.
Today's guest is Matt Barrick, an incredibly dynamic drummer, adept at leading the listener to unexpected sonic adventure. Matt began his career with Jonathan Fireeater, and as a member of the Walkmen, he was part of a new guard of New York rock bands at the turn of the millennium. His latest band, Muzz, is a collaboration with Paul Banks of Interpol and Josh Kaufman of Bonny Horseman. The band released its debut album last month on Matador. Matt spoke to me in early June from his home in Philadelphia.
Send the rest of me, sit in lovely shades.
Hello.
Hey, Matt.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I am doing all right. You know, hanging in there.
Have you been going to any protests?
I have not been able to do that yet.
Are you in New York
you?
City?
I'm in Philadelphia.
Oh, you're in Philadelphia. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. A gigantic storm just blew through and knocked over a huge tree in my yard. Took out the power lines. So
are you in the dark right
it's
now?
a dramatic day. Well, I'm actually at the studio.
Ah, okay, cool.
So, my wife has reported.
So did you grow up in Philadelphia?
I did not. I moved here about 15 years ago, 14 years ago. I grew up in D.C., D.C. suburbs, Virginia, and moved to New York when I turned 18. And then, I lived there for about 13 years and then came to Philly.
Were you part of the music scene in D.C. when you were living there as a kid?
I was in as much as I could be, based on my age, but yeah, definitely. I mean, it was such a huge part of growing up there. Like I had a band starting in 7th grade, and yeah, I think we opened for Fugazi maybe in 8th grade, which was pretty.
What was that
insane.
band called?
It was called The Ignobles. It was, at that point in time, we played ska music. We were probably about 3 feet tall. And yeah, I actually talked to Brendan Canty a year or two ago, and he actually remembered us, which is pretty amazing.
Brendan has a pretty good memory.
He's a hell of a guy.
Was Stewart in that band with you? In the Ignobles?
Yes. It was Stuart, me, and Walter, who's also in the Walkmen and Fire Eater.
Wow. And did you all
Yeah.
go to school together?
We did. They had actually been in a band since 5th grade, Stuart and Walter. And I came to their school in the 7th grade and joined up.
When did you start playing music?
I had played piano a little bit when I was really little, but not very seriously. In 6th grade, I started playing the guitar. And then, yeah, I joined their band as a guitar player in the 7th grade. And the drummer wasn't very good, and he wasn't very interested in the whole thing. So at a certain point, we had a school dance we were going to play at, and we needed a drummer. So we everyone sat down and tried out. And I guess I was the best, none of us having ever played the drums, really. So that's how it all started.
Did you feel a connection to drumming that you didn't feel to guitar playing?
I mean, probably not immediately, but I definitely took to it pretty quickly.
Were your parents musical people?
I mean, there wasn't like a ton of music being played as when I grew up. My father did play the harpsichord.
So you had a harpsichord in your home?
We had a harpsichord in our house, which
That's
is a
awesome.
pretty unusual instrument. Yeah, it was super cool. But, he never, once I got to a certain age, he really didn't play it very much. I guess he had taught himself to play, and he was pretty good. He'd play like Bach.
Yes.
The kind of stuff he'd play on a harpsichord, I guess.
Harpsichord literature.
Yeah.
So
And
would
he
he
was
play
always
like the
into
Goldberg
music.
variations and things like that?
I don't know exactly what he'd play, but I know he was big into Bach and Devo. He wouldn't play that on the harpsichord, but
You could.
those were his big. Yeah, I just remember him listening
Bach
to
and
Devo,
Devo.
Cyndi Lauper.
Okay.
And he was, into classical music.
When did you kind of start developing your own sense of taste?
I mean, I guess right around 7th grade when I, hooked up with Walter and Stuart was definitely when I started to get in my old band, my own music. And a lot of it came from my older sister. She was into all sorts of music that, I'd never heard of.
Did
And
she
definitely
play in a band as well?
Not until later. When when I was 20 and playing with Fire Eater, she started playing guitar and had a band called Red Scare, and then they changed their name to the Spells. That was when we were in New York.
I think there was another band called The Spells with Carrie Brownstein
There
and Mary
was,
Timony.
I think it was roughly around the same time, probably.
Probably right
they
before
maybe-
you could look up every band name in existence.
Exactly. We actually, basically we met at school, but I had met them a little bit before that. My friend from elementary school had known them, so I went to camp with Stuart before going to school together.
Was it an overnight camp?
It was.
I feel like that's a good place to meet band members.
It's great, yeah.
What kind of camp was it?
It's called Camp Greenbrier. I think it was in West Virginia. You'd sleep in big tents, and I don't know, you just do archery and various camp kind of things.
Were the counselors hippie-ish?
I don't even remember. Yeah, it's definitely some guitar circle kind of stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sneaking off thinking that was really exciting, going to the gas station, buying some candy, and then going back. It was kind of...
So you started the ska band, the Ignobles. Were you writing your own songs?
I guess when we first started, we were doing like Sex Pistols and Clash songs and Specials. Those were like our main bands we were into. Got really into the ska thing, and yeah, we had a couple pretty basic ska songs that we had written, and for some reason we got like some good shows. Like opening for Fugazi is pretty insane at this outdoor place, Fort Reno.
Right.
And we also, I think even before that, we had gone to see this ska band called the Toasters.
Mm-hmm.
And they played at American University.
I think they were part of the Moon Records stable, right?
Exactly,
New York.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was allowed to go, but Stu and Walter snuck out. They said they were going to a movie, which was something we did a lot of back then. And then we'd go see a show. But Stuart was pretty bold, and he marched us backstage and just knocked on their door and asked if we could open up. And they were, I think, very amused at the sight of us. And yeah, they realized that he was talking about like that night, like, can we open for you right now? And amazingly, they let us go up there and use their instruments and like play a couple songs, which was pretty hilarious. And then, they reported it in the local paper. And
you mean in the Post?
No, in like I think it was the school paper or something.
Oh, okay.
But somehow, like, it got back to their parents, and they got busted.
So, did Stuart always have that kind of confidence?
He did, yeah, definitely.
Because you were like 13 at the time?
Yeah, we were 13 or 14, yeah.
Did you share that trait of charismatic confidence?
Definitely not. No, I was definitely attracted to it and definitely fed off it. But yeah, I'd say he was definitely the ringleader for our little crew.
Where did you go to college?
Columbia.
And then you dropped out after a year or so?
Yeah, I guess we kind of started the Fire Eater right after high school, and it kind of came together freshman year.
So what was the impetus to change the name and kind of create a new band?
Well, Stuart, I mean, our high school band, went through many awkward phases and we added members. Paul, who was also in Fire Eater and Walkmen, joined in the 9th grade. We had a singer, Ryan Cheney, and a few other members who were rotating. But yeah, we went through, like a Red Hot Chili Peppers phase and Jane's Addiction and all this stuff. But I guess it was like when we were going up to college, Stuart had always played bass, and he said he wanted to start singing. And we were getting into just different kinds of music at that point, and yeah, it just seemed like a whole totally different thing.
And what did you study during your brief time at Columbia?
I mean, freshman year, they have a lot of core classes you have to take, so I don't know, my mind was definitely on music at that point. I mean, I did go back later and study history and a little bit of art, but yeah, basically American history.
Why did you decide to drop out when you did?
We all just were excited about this new band we had. We had recorded a bunch of demos in my dorm building. At this point, I guess Stuart was at Sarah Lawrence, Walt was up at Bard College, and Paul and Tom were in New York. And I guess we got together one weekend and like went to the boiler room in the basement and recorded a bunch of demos. I guess we just got super excited about this band and decided if we were going to focus on it, we kind of should just spend all our time doing that and not be distracted by school.
Do you feel like you had confidence as a drummer at that point?
I don't know. I mean, I probably had a certain amount of confidence. I don't know. Confidence always kind of ebbs and flows. At that point, I was probably confident. Confident. I was definitely into being super aggressive. I think at that point, late in high school, we played with the Nation of Ulysses. And I was just like blown away by James Caney and their whole thing.
They definitely were a band with an overarching aesthetic and cohesion.
Definitely. Are you from the DC area?
I lived there for a while, and so I'm friends
Okay.
with lots of these people that you're mentioning. And actually, Brendan was the first guest on the show. Do you feel like you had developed a unique voice by the time you started Fire Eater?
I don't think so. I was definitely getting into a whole lot of new influences, so working that stuff into what I was doing was exciting. But I don't know if I had quite, found anything too unique yet on my own.
Are you the kind of drummer that practices by yourself a lot?
No, not at all. Really bad at that.
Is it something that one should be good at?
Practicing alone?
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely makes you better. I mean, I feel like I've gone through a lot of phases. When I was, I started playing as like a band member. And we would play all the time. So I feel like that's where a lot of my practicing came in. And, I would practice a lot, but it wasn't like a super academic studying. I didn't take drum lessons until much later. I went to the Berklee School of Music summer program in junior year, and that was probably my first actual lessons. And I guess at that point I would practice a lot. At that school, and then when I moved to New York, I took some Afro-Cuban lessons.
You mean you went to the Berklee summer program junior year of high school?
Yes.
And who did you study with there?
His name is John Hazilla.
I know him.
Oh, yeah?
He's a brush master. He has a book about brush playing.
He's amazing. I went there and I decided to study jazz without really knowing much about jazz at all. It just seemed more interesting than, it was rock, jazz, or fusion. Those are your three choices. And so I was really a very beginning, just getting into that world. But he definitely he told me to go buy Miles Smiles,
That's a great
which is an
intro.
incredible starter to jazz drumming. Tony, of course. And yeah, it opened me up to that world, but I was definitely just getting started. And then, yeah, when I took Afro-Cuban later, yeah, so when I went to Columbia freshman year, I decided I wanted to take some lessons. And just went over to the Manhattan School, and they had like a bulletin board with a bunch of names. And I wanted to do Afro-Cuban, so started lessons with Annette Aguilar, who lived up in Washington Heights. And that was kind of taking lessons on and off for a couple years. But that was amazing, and like amazing stuff. Super hard to play. Every limb is doing something different. So there was a fair amount of practicing there.
Right. So during that time, you were practicing by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I never got into like pad rudiment kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Seems like you're kind of drawn to, making it into a musical experience rather than strictly a technical experience.
Definitely. And I feel like if you get something in your mind that you want to do and you can't do it, that's like when you practice. So you're able to do it.
In the sense that a band like Nation of Ulysses had an overarching kind of aesthetic, did Jonathan Fireeater consciously create an aesthetic identity?
I think we're definitely influenced by them to a large degree. And I guess a lot of the bands, that we were into had that about them. But it was also just like we were living together, we were listening to all the same music, we were all kind of definitely like all together as a team effort, I'd say.
I was in a band with my best friend in high school, and then we lived together our first year of college, and we're working on the band, and it was too much to be together that often. Did you have difficulties spending that much time with everybody in the band?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's definitely hard to, live together. Especially, it's five of us. And, we were trying to keep our costs down so we could afford to live together and not have to work too much. And so, we were all, right after we dropped out of school, we rented a one-bedroom, which is even generous. It was like a studio apartment on the Lower East Side.
What was the rent?
I think it was maybe $700, $800, something like that. Which actually sounds like a lot for how horrible that place was.
Especially when was that? Like the early 90s?
That was 94.
Yeah, and the Lower East Side was still kind of gnarly back then.
It was. I mean, it was. Yeah, this building was very gnarly. Fifth floor walk up. It was. Yeah, we only lasted there a month, and then our landlords owned the building across the street, and someone was moving out, so we got a 2-bedroom over there. Just still pretty scuzzy, but it was a little bit more space, and we each had bunk beds. But yeah, this wasn't something we could do for that long. We lasted maybe a year. And then we went on our first tour the next year with Slant 6 and moved out. And I don't know, then we were just all kind of floating around separately for a while.
What do you remember about recording the first album?
Well, we did it at Waterworks, which was on the on West 14th Street, in the meatpacking district, which back then was like a huge hub for transvestite prostitutes. They would just all stand in the street, and people would drive by picking them up. And it was right there, up in this kind of industrial building in this tiny little studio. I guess we had found it through, I don't know how we found that place. I know like Sonic Youth had recorded there, maybe the Blues Explosion. So yeah, we worked with Greg Tallenfeld, and we were super young. We had a lot of crazy ideas. I mean, I remember kind of forcing Greg to run the entire mix through a Fender Twin. And yeah, it sounds pretty bad. At the time, we thought it was really clever idea.
Cause it's showtime, and this should make me lemonade. Got my guitar on my shoulder song.
Were you proud of the way you sounded on that album?
I don't know. I think we knew it was kind of still a work in progress. Like, yeah, it was definitely a little harsh sounding. Yeah, I feel like we were still trying to find what we were doing. And we were still even playing some stuff from like our late high school band, just with different singing. And I honestly feel like the 4 tracks we had done the previous year were better sound, like not better sounding, but there was just more of a spark there. And this was in the same vein, but not really getting anywhere. I feel like after we did the Slant 6 tour, we had a few songs that we recorded like a 3-song single EP, and that's where I feel like we were kind of starting to find more of our sound.
What is your inner dialogue like when it comes to your, assessing your performances as a musician?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's a good question.
Are you hard on yourself?
I think so, to a certain extent. I mean, I guess, like, in terms of, like, the actual, like, recorded performance, I feel that I'm not too strict on certain timing things. I could probably be more strict, but I definitely, at a certain point, realized that if you're too careful with that stuff, you definitely lose a lot of the vibe and feel of the song.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like as long as that is good, I try to not worry too much about little details that I'm not thrilled about. Although different projects, it all depends on the song and the project. But I've never been too anal retentive, I guess, about my performance.
Do you congratulate yourself if you feel like you did a good job?
No. Definitely not. I try not to listen to it because then the more I listen to it, the more I'll feel like, I should have done this differently.
Does that
sometimes you just have to let it go
for things that you did a long time ago? Or with enough distance, can you appreciate it?
I don't go back and listen too much to things. Occasionally it's interesting. Yeah, I'm not too hard on myself for things far enough in the past.
So
Unless
then
it's
after
really
you
bad.
made that first record, you made another EP, and that's when the band started to get a significant buzz, as far as I remember. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, when we were first playing in New York, it was like nobody was there. It was like our friends were there. There'd be like 10 friends. And then they got sick of coming, and there was like nobody there. And then eventually, I don't know what happened, but yeah, it started to get generate a little more excitement. I feel like with the next EP and then the Tremble Under Boom Lights EP, was definitely, yeah, after that we started getting a bidding war with all the major labels happening.
Did it feel like that kind of coincided with the band discovering something unique?
I would think so, yeah. I'm not sure if that was why there was.
Right.
I think just, major labels will, if there's any sort of hype, they'll just hop on board. Definitely don't think we were creating anything remotely sellable. We never did.
So who reached out to you? You ended up on DreamWorks. So were you working with Lenny Waronker?
We were. I mean, there were a number of labels, and it was a pretty ridiculous period of like these people taking us out to dinners, and yeah, we were very aware of the ridiculousness of it, but we were pretty ridiculous ourselves, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the opposite of going on tour with Slant Six, going out to dinner with major labels.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that came probably a year or two after that. But I guess DreamWorks kind of came in at the end of all that. And yeah, Mo Austin and Lenny Waronker, they just, their history in the music business seemed more interesting than a lot of the other people we'd been talking to. Although we've met a lot of actually people who had been part of some interesting things, but I don't know, they just seemed more serious. It was like a new label. It seemed like something, the best of the bunch.
What were your expectations for that album?
I don't know. I mean, we had a very mixed up mindset. Like we just, I don't know. I guess we wanted to be big, but we didn't really care about doing anything that would make that happen. And we sort of had a lot of our aesthetic, or maybe just our political sensibility, came from growing up in the DC Discord scene. We just sort of had a devil may care attitude, maybe. And we definitely had specific ideas of how we wanted our music to sound, which was not commercial at all. So there were a lot of arguments with the label about how we were going to record, what it was going to sound like, and I think in the end they were not happy with it, but had to put it out. And, I mean, there was internal issues within the band anyway, from pretty early on. And it always seemed like a train that was going to derail at any minute.
So how did it actually derail?
Well, I mean, Stewart had a drug problem. And at the time, I mean, we now know in hindsight that he had mental health issues and struggled with schizophrenia. But, we just thought he was, a drug addict. And it was, it was a difficult time and a difficult issue to work just from, a friendship level to the band level to everything. It was just it was just a bit untenable.
Right, and even though you were still relatively young, you'd been friends and you'd been a band in some form or another for about 10 years or more at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of attempts at rehab, like self-rehabs, real rehabs. I mean, a lot of the songs that we wrote, we would go out to, Tom's family has a little house out in Ithaca, New York. And we'd go out there for a few weeks at a time and kind of dry out and work on music in the basement. Yeah, those were sort of our creative periods, but other than that, there was, it got pretty difficult. I mean, when we decided to end the band, it was like we had already been through a lot. We didn't know how to help Stuart, and we felt that we felt like as a band we weren't getting better. We felt like the band itself to continue, like there's no way that Stuart would be able to get better with the band existing. And yeah, we just thought it was time to pull the plug and do it. Full end of the band.
And then did you start the Walkmen immediately after that?
No, we all went back to school. And
did you go back to Columbia?
I did.
And you were studying history and art?
Yeah, I majored in history. I mean, I did a lot of art classes, but it was main focus was history. I mean, and I didn't have much of an idea of what kind of career that was headed towards, but, I was still playing music with Walt and Paul. We just weren't sure what we were going to be doing. We wanted to keep making music, but we didn't have a singer, so we decided to start a recording studio as a business, though we were not very business-minded. But we took out loans and rented a space and renovated it.
And that was Marcata, correct?
That was Marcata, and it took a really long time to build. Like when we were in school while we were doing it.
You were building it yourselves?
Yeah. And that was it was near Columbia, but up in Harlem on 133rd and Broadway. And yeah, we didn't really know what we were doing. We had some friends helping us who knew a little bit about construction. And yeah, it was pretty funny because we built 2 rooms and this really focused on this giant wall in between the 2 rooms. And it was very soundproof. It was like you could not hear anything between the control room and the lab room. But everyone else in the entire building could hear everything. So we had some noise issues, but we mostly played at night. And, it was like right when we were almost done building that, Hamilton, who was Walter's younger cousin, and Pete Bauer, their band, the Recours, was kind of coming to an end, and we always thought they were great, and Ham was a great singer, and so we kind of, that's how the Walkmen began, kind of all got together. And then focused a lot on that in that first record, recording at Marcata, and definitely lost, trying to run the studio as a business, but we weren't great business people or necessarily great engineers yet. We were kind of learning as we went, which was pretty funny, actually, at the time.
Right. It's kind of interesting that you decided to start a recording studio even though none of you had run a business or engineered before.
Exactly. It was a bold move.
Did it ever become profitable as a business?
No. I mean, we all had day jobs, and we would try to make like the rent at least with some sessions, but I'm not sure we really ever did that. Yeah, we're basically covering our costs if we were lucky.
When you think back to the Walkman discography, is there a particular recording that you feel the most close to?
Definitely that first record, I feel like, because we were doing it ourselves at Marcata, learning as we went, kind of trying any crazy idea that came in our head. Yeah, I feel like that was really a fun process.
Well, tell me about your new project.
Muzz. That is with Josh Kaufman, who is a excellent multi-instrumentalist / producer, and Paul Banks from Interpol. I've known Josh for years, and Paul, but I guess, how did it all start? I first met Josh when Walt from the Walkmen was doing his solo record. We played on a song together, and we played on a number of other things together. Craig Finn and Josh Ritter, and yeah, I always loved his playing and his vibe. So about 5 years ago, he came to Philly and we recorded some demos at my practice space. And then around the same time, I hooked up with Paul, and he was doing Banks and Steels, his project with RZA. And I played on some of that and toured with them. And at the end of that, we started working on some songs together. And I knew that he knew Josh from like high school. They had gone to school together in Madrid for a year and played together in various things over the years. So we all got together and just started recording. We started with these demos, but then we would just get together for like five days or so at a time upstate at this studio called the Isocon, and just kind of write and record stuff.
What do you think about most throughout the day right now?
Well, this week I'm thinking a lot about all the protesting that's going on and the state of the country and the world, honestly.
Did you consider delaying the release of this album?
Well, it's all kind of happened so fast that we aren't sure what to do, honestly. I mean, you know, it's coming out Friday. It's been planned in the works for months or longer. And yeah, I think we're just, like, the record's already been shipped to stores. We're not sure what to do. Like, we're talking about how we can contribute in any way to this movement. And I don't know that delaying our record's going to do much, but
Right.
I think we're just going to put it out. I mean, it's coming out like Friday, and Bandcamp is, they're giving all proceeds this Friday to artists, so we're going to give all the proceeds to related charities. And
Yeah, that's great.
hopefully
Yeah.
that will be some kind of help. But it's definitely a strange time to be putting out music and even talking about anything other than what seems to be, what's most important.
Right. But then if you look historically, if you look back, music often accompanies moments like this, and it can help.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that.
You're the touring drummer for Fleet Foxes.
We had toured with them as the Walkmen, and that happened. Yeah, he left shortly after that, and then maybe a year or so after that, we broke up. And I don't know. I mean, that was like in my mind. I always loved them and loved their music, and I was friends with them, and I always thought, like, if there's one band, because after the Walkmen broke up, I was like, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do.
You had a
But that was
history
definitely-
degree at that point.
Yes, but that, I wasn't qualified necessarily for any jobs. But yeah, that was definitely one band that I thought, like, I would love to play with. But it wasn't until years later that they started working on a new record and called me in to do some recording. And yeah, I played on about half that record and ended up touring with them for a year and a half. But yeah, it was great. Now it's sort of in another holding period of working, like Robin's working on new music. So we'll see what happens with that.
Did you have a tour planned to coincide with this album release?
We did, yeah. We had shows in April and June. I mean, all this summer through the fall, and it's all been moved or canceled. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. Seems like everyone's in a similar boat.
How do you feel about it? I mean, are you disappointed? Is it a relief to a certain extent?
I was disappointed. I mean, we've never played together as a band. We never played a show. And I was excited to see what that would be like. So, yeah, it's disappointing. we didn't have like 2 years of grueling touring planned, so that's always a little nerve-wracking. So I wasn't worried about that. It wasn't too intense, but it's definitely, I guess it's the way it is, and hopefully we'll be able to do it next year.
Maybe you can make a new record and tour them both by the time people can go out on the road again.
I mean, that's the plan. We've started working on some cover tunes remotely, and I think we'll get into some new material soon. I mean, I still have a studio I built here in Philly that I still have access to, which is a luxury. So, I think it's strange working like we're so. I really enjoyed like just the three of us getting together and coming up with stuff kind of on the fly, but I think we'll be able to figure out how to make a record without that.
I made a record that was supposed to come out in May, and I was supposed to be on tour up until about now. And obviously everything got pushed back. And since it's my first record as a quote-unquote solo artist, and I have no history and I'm building the audience from scratch, they decided to wait to put it out. We only played one show at the end of last year to just test it out. But it's a relatively...
So what's that called?
It's just under my name, Joe Wong.
And are you singing?
Yeah, I'm singing.
Oh, nice.
I'll send it to you. But it's just a weird time to try to put out something into the world. Like, I understand what you're saying. And I was thinking, I'm getting all the vinyl that I was going to sell on tour, and I think I'll just do the same thing that you guys are doing and sell it on Bandcamp and donate the money to some worthy causes. Because it doesn't...
Yeah, no, it's definitely a strange time. And I mean, like... I feel like maybe our first song came out before the pandemic even really hit. And it was just like, I don't know, we've been working on it for like 5 years. Just like, we're excited to get it out. I mean, it just seemed like, people, I mean, this is before all the protesting happened, but
yeah,
with the pandemic, it seemed like people were appreciating new music coming out and listening, attentive to it. So I was like, might as well just put it out and hope people enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
It's tour someday. I mean, like income for a musician is, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that it offers an opportunity for people to re-examine the way that the music industry is structured and maybe find ways to do it better,
Right. It seems like Bandcamp, for example, has been supportive.
Yeah. And then maybe we can return to a residency model rather than doing one-off tours. Like, maybe that would be more cost-effective and better for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But anyway,
or everyone's going to do, drive-in concerts, which is probably going to even be worse.
That's happening?
I feel like they did one in Germany like a month or so ago. Some sort of techno.
I mean, I guess it could be kind of cool if the band is, set up in a drive-in movie theater and then everybody's getting the board mix in their car. That might be kind of interesting. It sounds kind of like the experiments that the Flaming Lips used to do, where they would give out like 100 cassette tapes. Everybody would drive into a parking garage and hit play at the same time, or roughly the same time. But
how'd that work out?
I don't know. I mean, I think it was fun and experimental, but I wasn't at it, so I can't attest to what it was like.
People will have to get creative.
But I'm lucky because I work mostly as a film and TV composer, and I have projects that were shot before the pandemic, so I'm still working.
Right.
And I don't need to rely on income from touring or my record in order to make ends meet, but I'm in the minority in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people... I mean, I feel like for me, it's been that way forever. Like, touring was where you made money. So we will see. I mean, I've got the studio, but yeah, people can't come to the studio either. But I'm doing some remote sessions and mixing. But we will see.
So you've honed your engineering skills considerably over the last 20 years, I would imagine.
Definitely better than when we started at Marcata.
Did you record your album?
The Muzz?
Yeah.
Or, most of that was done by this guy Dan Goodwin, and he co-produced up at the Isocon.
Oh, right. Okay.
The studio wasn't built yet, so we did one song here. Towards the end there, the studio was ready, and Josh was on tour, and he stayed over, and we just kind of recorded a song the next day. And we did some, like the brass was recorded here, but most of it was done up there. Next record.
Yeah, there you go. At least your parts will be recorded there, and everybody else's will be recorded at their home.
Yeah, we're trying to think of a way that we could do some... Josh could come down and do some distance.
Just get one of those plexiglass baffles.
There you go.
You'll be like a drummer behind the salad bar, the sneeze guard.
Oh my God, those things. What are those things called? Do they have
I don't know. Plexiglass baffles. I don't know.
Plexiglass baffles.
Clem Burke uses one. Lots of people in churches use them.
Church, yeah, big in churches.
I feel like they were really big in the 90s, especially in like R&B music.
Mm-hmm. Got to control those drummers. Cage them.
Guess it makes sense. Less cymbals will leak into the vocal mics, and then you can play louder.
Yep. I guess I'll get one.
The only trade-off is you feel disconnected from the whole band, and the audience. But hey, maybe it's a solution for these COVID.
Just
sessions.
hit your cymbals quieter.
There you go. You shouldn't have to hit the cymbals very loud at all. They're just loud instruments. All you need to do is touch them. Well, Matt, I think we got what we needed.
Okay. Nice chatting with you.
Thank you for spending this time with me, and thanks for being on the show during this strange era.
Thank you. Nice talking. And send me that record.
The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.